Hello students, in the last lecture we heard about how F.L. Wright burst on the modern world's architectural scene and changed everything. When I say changed everything, I mean everything in the sense of his contribution to architecture. How he brought in the open free-flowing plan, how he brought the idea of continuity of spaces, how he brought in the idea of lowering the scale, the building should be off the hill and not on the hill. He brought these ideas. Moving forward, let us look at his project which he did, which is now being demolished. It was called the Larkin Building in a place called Buffalo in New York in 1904. It completely redefined what office buildings should be vis-a-vis what was being done by the Chicago school. I have already discussed about the Chicago school with you. You know the kind of tall buildings that they were building. His office building, as you can look here, and if you remember any of those buildings, his was completely different. This office building was concept recrystallized in a pure geometric form. He was more concerned not just about putting the building together technically, but also what shape and form this building would look like. And the ideas evolved here in this building have led to the evolution of the modern office design, at least more so in the interiors. Now, in the Larkin Building in this factory district of New York, very simple solutions were given by him, like the exterior surface should have exposed brickwork not requiring maintenance, exposed brickwork not requiring maintenance. This was an area where there was a lot of smoke and fog and pollution in the industrial district. Such kind of facade would be easy to maintain. Very practical decision. It would be hermetically sealed, the building would be hermetically sealed from dust, air and odor. Why? Noise and odor. Why? Because outside this is what there is. Industrial district hai, there is going to be dust, there is going to be noise, there is going to be smells. Completely seal the building from that. But when you seal this, how do you provide cooling, heating, air? What do you do? So for that we need air conditioning, and in those days he did not have the kind of air conditioning systems we have or HVAC systems that are there in our buildings, but he provided a rudimentary, a very simple AC system where fresh air was caught high above the ground and through shaft it was brought and pumped into the building. So there are these 4 shafts on 4 sides of the building. The air was captured and pumped into the building. Now heating and ventilation intakes, stairways placed at the 4 corners of the building. So if you look at the 4 corners, this is 1, 2, 3 and 4. In these 4 corners, the heating and ventilation intakes, stairways and fire escapes are also placed here. They are placed here. Now this building had an atrium. If you go back in the plan, this area, this much area was going all the way to the top and it was an atrium. These are rendered images of the atrium because the building does not exist. This is an original picture how people are working in the gallery next to the atrium. So atriums and galleries, a single large workspace free from all other facilities. This was Larkin Building's plan. Now what is the impact on modern buildings? If you look at the Lloyds of London by Richard Dodgson in 1985, HSBC Hong Kong by Norman Foster in 1986, you find a very similar concept, at least in terms of the floor plate. Their floor plate also has a cutout which can go all the way down, and then there are these people sitting around it. And here also there is a kind of a cutout, not exactly a cutout, it is a glass covered area, and the functioning area is all around it. Now when we come to the idea of perimeter services, and the services as you see in Larkin Building, those 4 corners are having the services. So here we find the idea in the Pompidou Center where the services are provided in these 2 spines on either side of the building. Or we come to the Leadenhall Building in London, and again we find that the services are concentrated here. So on one side of the building, atrium is lit up by light, the workspace is lit up by the skylight from above, and there are these bands of Chicago windows on the side from where the light filters through into the building. Now again, if you compare just the atrium wall space of the Larkin Building, the Lloyds of London and the HSBC Hong Kong, we find so much similarity. One building built in before 1910 and two buildings that were built after much more technical advancement are following the concept of this building. The concept did not become old, only the technology became superior. So the way the atrium is put together, the kind of materials used in making the atrium in Lloyds of London, in HSBC was definitely different, but the idea was the same. And then we talk of modern atriums today. In the Ford Foundation Center in New USA, there is this wonderful atrium. It's done in 1967. Then in the Phillips Exeter Library in the USA 1972 by Louis Kahn, and in the Mercedes-Benz Museum by the UN Studio in 2006. The principle is all of them are drawing light from above, in this case from here, but more light from the sides, whereas in this case maximum light is coming only from the top, and in this case also maximum light is coming from the top. And also other design innovations that happened in the Larkin Building. He put all these windows in the galleries at 7 feet height from the ground. Why? Because he said there is nothing to see out there. So let us keep it 7 feet high from the ground. Having done that, below that he provided filing cabinets tucked in at 7 feet till 7 feet, all filing cabinets along the wall tucked in. Such an amazing, simple, efficient use of space. And then he brought in steel furnitures and fittings, easy to maintain, easy to clean, durable and long lasting. So he designed this furniture. Now he did things like he would design a chair which would be a part of a table, in the sense that it would be joined to the table with a kind of a moving mechanism, so that when you get out of your chair, the chair just swings back like that and you can do your work and come back. But the chair has no legs because that entire hinge mechanism is supporting its weight. And why did he do that? Because to ease cleaning of the floor. He said when people will come to clean, because there are no legs under the chair, it makes it easy to move the wiper or to move the vacuum cleaner, etc. So he came up with these ideas. Of course, not all of them were successful, but the idea of having metal furniture in office buildings or steel furniture in office buildings really caught on, and it is being done even today. So all design, whether it was to do with the windows or the filing cabinets or the furniture design, all designed to simplify cleaning and making the operation easy. He understood what is the need of an office building and he provided it. Now what did you see here? This is the last thing I will be touching upon. This is a wall hung men's urinal. The first person to design the wall hung men's urinal was Frank Lloyd Wright, and he designed it and placed it in the Larkin Building, and it turned out to be of great convenience. So we find that there are many contributions he makes. He makes contribution with regard to the way the space is organized in an office building, the way the people are organized in their working spaces, the way we can capture light and wind into that building if it's hermetically sealed, and the various other innovations that he came up with. Moving forward, his innovation plans, there were radical ideas in these plans, and there was also these ideas that he gave here had strongly influenced modern designs that followed him. So here we have three buildings. We are looking at the Roby House, the Unity Temple, and this Larkin Building. And this picture actually shows us again atriums in different hotels by John Portman. Okay, coming to the Unity Temple. Unity Temple is a complete block of exposed concrete. It was a place of worship, and he joined the aesthetic and structure of RCC in this as a block of concrete. The external form was like a fortress protecting the sanctuary from the external noise, and is very important development in modern architecture, the Unity Temple. One of the reasons was that he was able to break free from the standard mold of sacred architecture, that this is how a church building should look like or a cathedral should look like. He completely removed that and he brought in new functional ideas for the modern times. And in the now if you compare the two buildings, the Larkin and the Unity Temple, very close to each other within a span of 2 years time, this was a block of brick, the Larkin Building, and Unity Temple turned out to be a block of concrete. More and more we find after this that Wright will start varying or moving towards the use of concrete. Now the Unity Temple is said to be a binuclear or an H plan. If you look at the plan here, you will find it's got these two units. One unit which I am marking right now is the worship area, and this other, one unit that I am marking now is the administration area. The area that I marked here, this squarish one, is the worship area. Connecting the two is this passage area. Therefore, it becomes an H plan. You enter this from here, and you, based on your function, will move either to the right or the left. You come to worship, you move left. If you come for administrative work, you move right. How simple things become by this binuclear planning. And it has got dual cores, the core of worship, the core of administration. The functional separation is there, symmetry and balance is there, and enhanced circulation because things are directly divided into two circulatory paths as soon as you enter the building. Now, there is efficiency in this building because it reduces redundancy and optimizes space utilization. There is efficient use of space here. There is flexibility because of flexible space allocation and easy reconfiguration of interior spaces. They can be reconfigured more easily. There is privacy and noise control. There is natural light and ventilation throughout the building. Now, the most important thing that came out of this building vis-a-vis Wright's own ideas about architecture was the idea of plasticity and continuity. Wright said the interior space itself is the reality of the building. The interior space itself is the reality of the building. This apparently was borrowed from a Chinese scholar, Lao Tse, who had said the empty space within the vessel is its reality. The reality of a vessel is the space that it encloses. That is what he had said. Wright converted it for architecture by saying the interior space itself is the reality of the building. Uninterrupted flow of space, destruction of the box through cantilevered construction. He was able to provide these, for example, different levels of sitting here by the use of concrete and cantilever. And so from this building onward starts the whole fascination and use of cantilevers by F.L. Wright in his buildings. One of the modern architects who made maximum use of cantilevers in his design was F.L. Wright. So here what happens? What he realized was that when I do this, not only is the box broken, not only is the space flowing very freely, but something else is also happening. The space is also flowing in the upward downward direction. When people sitting here are looking down, people here below are looking up, people are talking to each other, connected to each other and visible to each other, he suddenly realized this space is moving in all directions, that there is a continuity about it, right? And this was he was able to do by putting these balconies on all sides. So there is a plasticity. What he meant was there is a certain moldability about the building now. There is a certain continuity about it, both horizontal movement and continuity and vertical movement and continuity. Wright's original architecture, organic architecture, building in harmony with his environment and occupant needs. That was the original thing that he came up with, that his organic architecture was to build in harmony with the environment of the building and to meet the needs of the occupant. Now again, Night light filters through the skylight and the high windows in the Unity Temple. Amazing. He brings in light from the top. As you can see, he did in the Larkin Building, he did it here also. There is no window that is pointed towards the street view. In Larkin, he removed that and put it at 7 feet height because it was all industrial all around, all smog and dust. What was there to see? Here he did that because he said you are in a place of worship, your focus should be on worship, on what is going on, rather than seeing outside. You should rather see the sky where you believe God resides. And so you have these windows up all around and light filters in through them. So the whole concept of plasticity and continuity. Night light filtering in from the skylights and from the high windows, integration of furniture and furnishings with the building, his original idea, the propositions he had given of the designing of a house, they are here. So in comparison, we can see the Postal Savings Bank in Austria by Otto Wagner in 1882. This is the Postal Savings Bank. This savings bank also has got large span spaces. It's got exposed steel columns in which even the rivets have been left exposed and painted over. It has got exposed glass, and this is the work of Postal Savings Bank by Otto Wagner. If you look at the Secession Gallery in Austria by J.M. Olbrich, again you find the same thing. Very large open space, all of it made possible because of RCC or steel construction, and here also very simple, very plain and straightforward large open space. Whereas in the case of Wright, it is large open space, but it is having much more of a buzzard. I will explain what buzzard is. Too much of everything. There is too much detailing. There is detailing in the window grill. There is detailing in the furniture, the various elements of the building. He uses a lot of details. Though that enriches the building, it also it brings in many more things into it. But when we look at Olbrich's gallery or Postal Savings Bank, you do not find that so-called enrichment in them. They are very plain and simple, devoid of all this. With the understanding, at least in Olbrich's art gallery, that when the art comes in, it is the art that will bring in the color, it will be the art that will bring in the artistry and the variety into it, right. And Postal Savings Bank got a simple job of being a bank, and it is working very efficiently. So though the idea had percolated down, but the Europeans were doing it differently. Large span spaces with light from above through skylights. Unity Temple space also flowing in vertical direction in levels. This was another thing Wright understood through the Unity Temple. Now when we come and when we talk about modern large span spaces, today we are living in a time when the spaces are of a Garangitan proportion. They are just too huge. So when we talk of the Yoyogi National Gymnasium in Japan by Kenzo Tange in 1963, this is the amount of open space. Or we talk of, I am sorry, forgive me, this is the Japanese one, the Yoyogi National Gymnasium in Japan by Kenzo Tange in 1963, Sydney Opera House by Jean Utzon in 1973. Then we have the Hong Kong Airport by Norman Foster in 1998, and we have the New National Gallery in Germany in 1968. I am sorry, I should have placed them more chronologically, but you would realize that the earlier the building, they have long spans and large spans, but the later buildings, the large spans become even larger, like an entire airport done by Norman Foster, or the entire what do you call and other similar buildings where very large spans were built way beyond what these buildings were able to achieve. Coming back to the Wasmuth portfolio that he got printed in Germany, and young architects in Europe got a chance to see the works of their idol. 2 volumes of this portfolio were published from 1893 to 1909, finally published in 1910. It was significant as a link between Wright's architecture and the first generation of modernist architects in Europe. That link was here. These works of F. L. Wright from 1893 to 1910 were all incorporated in them. Major impact on European architecture. Lot of European architects were building wonderful buildings, and they had been learning from Wright, but Wasmuth Portfolio helped them to understand it with better rigor. If you look at the Bock House, one thing that happened because of this interaction is that Wright also started changing. Not only did the European younger architects learn from Wright, but whether he liked it or not, whether he had planned it or not, Wright also started learning from them. And when he designed the Bock House in 1916, it was in the prairie style, but it was also with modernism. How do I say that? Okay, please look at the grills of the windows. They don't exist. Wright's art and craft, art nouveau, kichi work is all gone. It's neat and tidy like the Europeans. You look at the furniture, it's neat and tidy lines. We used to do the same earlier also, but these are even simpler. His overall, there is complete free flowing form and interior inside, totally attributable to Wright himself. He total credit to him, but small things happened, which is why I titled it Prairie Style plus Modernism. This happened in this very a small but beautiful house. These are the interiors of the house, truly a magnificent house, and that is the interesting thing about Wright. Even if he had designed one such project in his lifetime, he would be remembered in America at least as a good architect. But he designed around 1000 projects. I think more than 500 of them were built. So he left behind a very large repository of work. Because of his great affinity to Japan and Japanese architecture, Japanese prints and so on, he got an invitation by the Japanese to design the Imperial Hotel in Tokyo in 1916 to 1922. So shifted base to Tokyo, and he designed this hotel with the concept of organic architecture, plasticity and continuity. He brought in a very innovative design in which what he did, he did not borrow from the local Japanese architecture. All his life he had been inspired by Japanese. His spaces were inspired by Japanese architecture. He had taken it from there, but when he landed in Japan, he completely said no to any Japanese thing, in the sense that the influence will be from Western and Eastern architectural elements. The maximum impact was that of Aztec architecture, Mayan architecture, the architecture of South America. He brought that here from there, and in Japan this is what he gave them. He designed a beautiful hotel. The most important part was its earthquake resistance. Now, people think of great architects as if they are people living in the sky somewhere, their mind is in the clouds, they don't get bogged down by small issues like earthquake safety and engineering problems and all that. They just design fantastic buildings. Totally wrong. F. L. Wright was one architect who totally understood the brief of a problem, and he understood that one major problem in the Imperial Hotel is seismic event can happen, they need seismic safety. So he, being the structural engineer that he was, designed the structural system of Imperial Hotel in a certain way. First he fused Japanese aesthetics with Western techniques and Mayan architectural features. This picture shows us that the way the space has been arranged, the way the decoration has been done, this aspect of Mayan architecture you see embedded all over. Local materials, Oya stone and terracotta were used, and spatial continuity was maintained through open and flowing public spaces. Open and flowing public spaces. The structure innovation that he brought about was floating foundation was made for the liquid muddy soil of Tokyo to absorb and dissipate the seismic shocks. And he did one thing very interesting at the time, which is modern times seismic safety process or method or principle, and that is he designed many small and independent parts for earthquake resilience with many sections with expansion joints between them that could move independently in case of an earthquake. If they were all connected together when the earthquake happened and it was beyond their bearing this thing, they would just simply crush or crash into each other. The whole thing would tear apart. Buildings would tear apart because it is all connected together. I hope you understand, right? So here we have cantilevered floor slabs. The floor slabs are cantilevered with pin supports. How do you explain that, understand that? He understood it this way. It is like a waiter carrying a tray of glasses on his hand like this. So this is the column on which the tray, the floor plate is, and this is how the floor plate is being supported in the muddy soil on this pin support. Not only that, even the walls are on pin supports like this, and the walls and the floors are not connected to each other. They are close to each other, but they are all independent of each other. The fundamental principles of contemporary earthquake design, so that when the earthquake happens, each one will oscillate or vibrate based on its own frequency and independent of each other. That mitigates so much of the impact of the earthquake. समझ में आ रहा है? This is because of this. When the hotel was completed in 1923, there was a massive earthquake that took place in Tokyo. Most of the buildings collapsed, lot of people died, and one building that remained standing completely intact was the Imperial Hotel. A lot of people were accommodated into the building, and a telegram was sent, one of the most famous telegrams of the 20th century, in which was written, "Imperial Hotel stands as a testimony to your genius. Congratulations." What an amazing testimony to this man, for this man. Amazing work that he did. He was not an architect with his head in the clouds. He was an architect who understood the demands of a project. So this project demanded earthquake seismic safety, and he incorporated it. This did not mean that he gave them some cheap or bad looking building. No, he gave them a very interesting, very, at least some people think very beautiful, but he gave them a wonderful building, keeping in mind always about earthquake safety. He went on with his Mayan phase. This was say somewhere around 1910 onwards. There was an entire period all the way up to maybe the early 1930s when he was deeply impacted by Mayan architecture, not Japanese architecture, and he started using that in the projects that he was doing. And very rich people, millionaires and all these people in Los Angeles and all wanted to build a house for them. So Bransdall, she called him to make a house for her with Mayan influence in 1916, 1920, and it was also called the Hollyhock House because there was a flower hollyhock that was growing on the site, and Wright designed some decorative features in concrete using the symbolic representation of the Hollyhock House. This is the Hollyhock. Now, Mayan and Japanese influence were together in these free-flowing interiors of this building. But the amazing thing that you will find is the boldness of the free-flowing space. In this building, being a larger house, you see the extent of freedom of movement is even much more. And then he went on to do two Taliesins, the Taliesin East, which was in Spring Green, Wisconsin, and the Taliesin West, which was in Scottsdale, Arizona in 1937. And then onward it also became the architect's own house and studio. Here is an example, a picture of Wright working with some of the young architects who used to come and do apprenticeship or internship under him. These are the two Taliesins. This is the Taliesin West in Arizona. This is the Taliesin East in Wisconsin, the two Taliesins. The emphasis was again on the horizontal plane with all these projections he was trying to draw the eye through these lines towards the horizontal, and here also very very low key architecture so that it would maintain the feeling of low height. Then the scale of the building is low key and uses a lot of natural light into the building. In the case of the earlier Taliesin in Wisconsin, he was using bricks and other material. Light was filtering in through these skylights, etc., and through glass doors, etc. But here in the second one, he used a certain kind of sheets, poly sheets and all, that allowed light to filter in directly from the top or from the windows, etc. Then the roofscape, he had amazing sense of roofscape, both in both the license. There was a whole way in which the roofs were organized together. He used local materials in both of them, merging them with the surrounding landscape, and then he started designing what came to be called as the textile block houses. So he continued building with the textile block houses. This is the Millard house in Pasadena, and this is the Enos house in Los Angeles. Both of them for very affluent and rich clients, and both of them having this Mayan influence dominating them. In his autobiography, he said, to build with concrete blocks as they are the cheapest thing in the building world, he wanted to see what could be done with this gutter rat. He called the concrete block as a gutter rat, and he said, I want to see what I can achieve with such a cheap building material which people don't usually like to use in America. And he did some of these amazing houses using this gutter rat concrete block. These are the interiors of the Millard house, and you can see his whole ideology that he had developed about free flowing spaces, the way the interior should be, the entire list of principles of what a house should be are still applicable here. There is still natural light flowing through, the spaces still are a certain way, the use of color is still in a certain way, everything, and yet you find the same beauty in all his houses. He makes them stand out. He brings in light from different sources which you would not normally think of and incorporates them into the building. And then in the Millard house, the way in which the entire house has been organized. On one end you have the rough surface, on the other hand you have a perfectly normal bed to be there. Everything seems to be a part of this. It is very done very beautifully in a very orderly manner, and really making a wonderful statement about Wright's architecture. Then the Enos house, the massive house, and flow of spaces and use of light here also. This is again the Enos house. Another example of the textile block house was the Storer residence in Los Angeles in California in 1923. So we will end here. How Wright, in this presentation we saw that Wright, having done projects like the Larkin Building and the Unity Temple, working with a whole mass of brick and a mass of concrete, he then understood more about the theme of plasticity and continuity and the flowing of spaces, how he then started experimenting with Mayan architecture, how his impact spread to Europe, to other European architects there, how he came back and he just started working with the concrete block, whole range of houses which were the textile block houses done by Wright. This time period in his life, somewhere around 1910s to 1930-35, is said to be his lean period. He somehow was not in the limelight as he was before, not as popular, not as in the front, but then in 1936 came Falling Water, and that changed the entire history of his life all over again. We will see about that in the later presentations. Thank you.